Today's security briefing will be conducted by Malcolm Nance. Retired naval intelligence officer, fluent in Arabic, has been posted all over the Middle East, South Asia, and Sub-Saharan Africa. He was an instructor at the U.S. Navy Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape School. Helped create the Advanced Terrorism, Abduction, and Hostage Survival School. His specialty, Middle Eastern terrorism. His assessment of the enemy: Al-Qaida is a cult. Its ideology is a dramatic corruption of traditional Islam. Its doctrine is based on destroying and re-engineering Islam. Plan of attack: code name, circuit breaker. A mind war to separate Al-Qaida from its base of support. Expected outcome: total defeat of Al-Qaida within 24 months.
24 months? 2 years until the total defeat of Al-Qaida? Joining us now is the man who has a plan to do just that. He lays it all out in his new book, An End to Al-Qaida, which I've been freaking people out by reading on the subway recently. Malcolm Nance is a 27-year intelligence and combat veteran. Thank you very much for coming back on the show tonight. It's nice to see you.
It's always my pleasure.
I feel like when I read this on the subway, people grasp that it says Al-Qaida in big letters, and I keep wanting to point out, an end to, an end to. We are at war with Al-Qaida right now. What changes do we need to make in the way that we're fighting it in order to literally end it within 2 years?
Well, as you might have noticed, that over the last couple of months, we've had this discussion about Omar Farouk Abu-Muttalib, the young gentleman who flew an airplane and tried to explode himself over Detroit. Now, for the most part, everyone wants to talk about the kinetics of warfare. That's bringing down lots of heavy artillery, weapons, and explosives down on the terrorists. And that's a great method. It's one that I enjoyed in my time, but it is not the only way to attack the enemy. And one way that we have completely ignored, we have yielded the entire battlefield to Al-Qaeda over the last 20 years, is we have never attacked their ideology. What they stand for, why they stand for, and how they can motivate young men to get onto an airplane and blow themselves up. Well,
you make the case in An End to Al-Qaida that Al-Qaida both is a cult, should be seen as a cult, and America should go some way toward internationally defining them as a cult. Why do you think that's so important?
Well, for the most part, Al-Qaida has defined us, the United States, and their mission with no challenge from the United States government or from any global body for that matter, other than a little bit by the Saudis over the last 20 years. Ever since their very inception, they have determined what they are. They see themselves as a band of nomadic knights who go around the Middle East and Muslim world, and they fight for Islam. That is not what they're really about. They intend, if you read Al-Qaeda doctrine, if you read the words of Osama bin Laden, they intend to re-engineer Islam. Islam is the component that they need in order to have a clash of civilizations between what they view as a radicalized Islam and the West. However, to do that, they have to break down all of the traditional structures of Islam and radicalize those people.
And that's why they don't have any qualms about the fact that such a high percentage of their victims are Muslims, something that would be completely verboten in traditional Islam of any stripe.
Well, the beautiful thing about the way that Al-Qaeda manages to usurp the opinion of the Muslim world is that they use our mistakes, our political errors, our policy errors, and they tend to come forward as these fighting knights and usurp those opinions and make it appear as if they are the people who are speaking for the Muslim world. The Muslim world has no idea what Al-Qaeda really intends for Islam in itself.
How does America wage a war with that mission, with that message mission, that mind war, as its central dominating, as its prime mover? The reason I ask is because it's hard to, as you say, it's hard to think of that as war. It sounds like that's PR.
Well, it sounds like PR, but if you notice that we have spent, what, trillions of dollars right now putting down the heavy metal, putting down the kinetics onto our terrorist enemies, looking up at the intelligence, but we have never at any point decided to stop their ability to recruit and get support from the very community that they want to usurp. So it's not as sexy as putting a predator drone up in the air and killing a man from 30,000 feet. It's not as sexy as putting 175 grain sniper round through the head of somebody who's out in the middle of Afghanistan. However, more critical to this mission, and like I said, we call it circuit breaker. If you break their ideology, you break their link to Islam and Muslim support from people who aren't quite sure of what they really stand for but don't actively oppose them in any way. If you can actually flip that switch, it'll be like the Anbar awakening in Iraq when the Iraqis determined that Al-Qaeda was just not going to lead them into an Islamic society against their will. And they turned off that support and they killed that organization within less than a year.
And it happened fast. That's one of the points that I think you make very compellingly, that Al-Qaeda may want this to be a long war. We don't, and we shouldn't let them determine the terms of it. Do you think we're capable of doing this?
I think that if we actually decide to go after Al-Qaeda with all the resources of the United States government, right now it's been the Department of Defense, and a few times we looked into it, but, you know, the State Department wanted to re-engineer how the United States was viewed around the world. We need to realize that this is a virus that will burn through the Muslim world. This is why Omar Farouk Abdul-Muttalib's father had no impact on the boy, to the point where he couldn't talk him out of whatever radicalization he was into. He had to go to the Central Intelligence Agency to go out and try to harness, bring the boy back to reality. But this cultist-like ideology that they have within there is irreconcilable. There is no turning this off from members of Al-Qaeda once they've gotten within that organization. So in doing so, we have to come to the defense of the Muslim world. We have to realize that our ally in this fight is the Muslim world, and we have to help them stop this virus.
Briefly, Malcolm, you've been on this show in the past. We've talked about interrogation techniques. We've learned that the Taliban's top military commander has been captured in Pakistan. How should the U.S. be handling this interrogation?
Well, right now, unfortunately, he's not in our hands.
He's in Pakistani
He's in the hands of the Inter-Service Intelligence Agency. And if he were to have fallen in our hands, we need to process him as quickly as possible, but we cannot use any of the methodologies we've used before. I know Vice President Cheney has got as a great advocate of using what some people call enhanced interrogation techniques, which I, as a professional, call torture. Sadism is not something the United States needs to indulge itself in as a personal fantasy. We need to act as intelligence professionals. We need to bring whatever information he can give us about our enemies off the battlefield and down to the unit commanders so that they can actually fight this fight.
Malcolm Nance, spoken as a man who knows, author of An End to Al-Qaeda, Destroying Bin Laden's Jihad and Restoring America's Honor. Compelling reading, and I'm grateful that you wrote it, and I'm grateful that you're here. Thanks. It's good to see you. Thank you.